Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to start a new series that I am calling What Is It Like Having a Cat? The first thing I'm going to talk about is preparing to have one. So the first thing to think about is home safety. In some people's situations this may not be a big deal. For me it was a pretty big undertaking because of the amount of stuff that I had. So it was a good opportunity, really, for me to minimalize my life. But think about things like cables. What kinds of cables do you have exposed? So, for example, some cats just love these little earbud wires. I'm lucky, and the cat that I eventually adopted did not, but I had to think about how I had my cables set up and arranged and how accessible they would be to a cat, because they can, depending on what they're hooked up to, they can deliver quite an electric shock. So I had to think about where my cables were and how I was routing them and even protect some of them. I don't have an example near me, but I had I got wrappers around for wrapping around cables to protect them. And every once in a while she plays with the wrapper a little bit, but gets bored very quickly, and it doesn't do any damage to her or the cable. So the next thing is droppable items. These are things that maybe are on shelves that you absolutely don't want pushed off shelves that are maybe smaller, in particular smaller, but some cats will knock even big stuff off just because they can. Or things that are maybe dangerous, like if you have a big set of loose shelves that are pretty top heavy just because of the way you stacked stuff on top of them. That might be fairly dangerous for your cat if your cat decides to jump up on top of those shelves and they fall over. Who knows what could happen? And then a consideration for me was the trash can, because I had friends who had a cat that really liked to get into their trash and spread stuff all over the place. So I had to think about whether or not I was going to commit to making that more difficult for a cat right out of the gate, or wait and see if it became a problem. In my case, I just decided to wait, and if it became a problem, my plan was to literally just bolt weight into the bottom of the trash can to make it super hard to tip over. But then there's also general cleaning. Cats tend to be pretty neat creatures. They tend to like a pretty clean area, and that means that if you just keep a clean and organized place and you bring a cat into that, not only will it help with all of the things I just mentioned above, but it will also make the cat feel a little bit more welcome and less intimidated. And um, obviously, you don't want to have nothing in your home for the cat to hide and feel safe in, but you do want to have a place that's relatively clean so that they don't feel like they have to investigate every little nook and cranny of the whole place before they're kind of safe, so that they can just carefully walk into a room and observe a large amount of area without too much effort. Um, and I should add, while talking about that in particular, I'm not a cat behavior expert. I have a cat, but that's it. I all I'm able to do is convey what I have learned from my cat, as well as research that I did when I was getting one. So then there are things you need to buy. It's up to you whether or not to get a water fountain or water bowl right out of the gate. I got a water bowl first to see how much my cat would drink, and she drank some, but not a lot. Cats have the tendency to get a lot of their water from their diet rather than just drinking, and it seemed kind of like Gabby was maybe more used to just drinking than a lot of cats, but I noticed that when I got her a water fountain, she much preferred the water fountain to a water bowl, and that could be because of cleanliness of the water, distance from her food bowl, because some cats really prefer that the water bowl be over here and the food bowl be over here. So that just kind of depends on what you want to try. Whatever you decide to do, get shallow bowls. Lots of cats, they have whiskers, right? And the whiskers are sensory organs, and a lot of cats don't like rubbing their whiskers against stuff all the time. They may rub their whiskers against you as a way to really what they're doing is they're trying to rub their cheek on you because there are scent glands there. So they're basically just saying, hey, I want you to smell like me. But the whiskers, while they're eating, is something they tend to not like. And lots of cat food bowls will be small and deep, and I hate it. It's just a terrible idea. Just get a shallow bowl, maybe even a plate, to start with, to see how messy of an eater your cat is. Mine happens to be extremely neat for the most part. So then, litter box. There's all kinds of litter boxes. In general, I would say do your own research on what's an appropriate size litter box. Lots of cats don't like the covered litter boxes. Mine in particular does not like a covered litter box. So I would make sure that you have a place not necessarily like hidden in a corner so that your cat feels like it's completely 100% isolated and there's no other option while in a fairly vulnerable moment, but not like in the middle of a high traffic room, right? So for example, I put my litter box for my cat, not for me. I put my cat's litter box in the second bathroom that my place has that's just off the what I use as an office, this room, and the living room of my place. So they're both kind of adjacent to a bathroom. And that means that while I'm not necessarily going to witness every single time my cat uses her litter box, I am fairly nearby, so she doesn't have to be concerned about me disappearing while she's gone or anybody sneaking up on her or anything like that. And I arranged the litter box in such a way that it's easy to see for her to see out the door of the bathroom if she wants to. Um, so the litter box arrangement can be fairly important. Food is another thing that's probably pretty obvious. There's a whole ton of dietary recommendations, and I'm not a vet. I didn't put it on here because it's not really a purchase, but you could ask a local vet, ask friends who they trust for a vet, and ask that vet what kind of food they recommend. I've heard IMS, Hill Science, and one other one, Purina, I think. But anyway, it hardly matters because again, I'm not a vet. I wouldn't focus unless you have desire to, like unless you have a personal allergy. I wouldn't focus on grain-free or anything in particular right out of the gate. The first thing that you should do is get food recommended by a vet just for the age or maybe type or any known restrictions or whatever for your cat, and then go from there and see if they prefer or really dislike something in particular that you got them for food. Don't do a ton of experimentation all the time. Cats are creatures of habit, so they'll tend to be okay just eating the same thing over and over. I'm generalizing, but that's often the case. So don't switch their diet on them every week or two, but feel free to do a little bit of experimentation if you think they might not like their food, and monitor their weight, of course. Keep a fairly close eye on their weight, and most cats won't sit still on a scale. Just weigh yourself, then pick up your cat and weigh the whole assembly and subtract the difference. So then litter. This was a complicated one for me because my cat is very fluffy and has very fluffy paws. So there was basically no clumping litter out there. Clumping like clay, sand like litter, right? that I could use that didn't mean I would get litter all over my apartment. I was lucky she didn't make a big mess like at the litter box, like throwing litter over the side or anything like that. But I was unlucky in that she tracked litter all over the place, and she didn't like it either. She clearly, very obviously, did not like tracking litter because I'd see her trying to get it off of her paws. Uh, and I didn't like it either for obvious reasons. It's kind of gross, right? So, there's all kinds of clumping litter, and there's also ones that are billed as environmentally friendly, and there's non-clumping litter even. For some people, non-clumping litter is the right way to go. For me, my cat still tracked that all over the place, so it wasn't really much of a gain. So I ended up using pellet litter, and there's a bunch of different kinds of pellet litter, and I'm just not going to deep dive into any of it, but now you have a vague sense of what's out there. Uh, the toys, I'd start with just a couple basic types of toy, like what I got one that's a combo toy scratcher where there's like a cardboard circle in the middle that has like a scratching type of setup and then a ring around the outside with a ball in it. My cat didn't really like that too much. I got little mouse. Oh, excuse me. I got little mouse toys. My cat didn't really like those a lot either. I got some wand toys and she played with them some, but not a lot. She just didn't play a lot at all. I did, however, get this. It's catnip infused. She does seem to enjoy this a little bit more. And I don't know how well it'll show on camera, but it's pretty well destroyed. Uh, so just get some toys. You don't need a whole arsenal of them. Just get a couple different types and see what your cat likes to play with. And they're not real expensive. Then scratchers and cat trees. These are, for most cats, how you save your furniture. Really. Just give them something good to scratch against and play around on that isn't furniture, and you won't have many problems. What types of trees or scratchers your cat prefers, I have no idea. My cat is really not picky. You can see in the background here, I've got one tree in here, I've got another one in my living room, and another little one right next to my couch to encourage her to scratch that instead of my couch. Again, you don't have to go nuts here. Like, your cat isn't going to care if it's a wireless smart scratcher that records every time your cat walks into or out of it, or just there's no reason to go nuts. Just get something simple and a few different styles and see what your cat likes. And it's kind of the same deal with beds and blankets. You don't need to spend a ton of money on crazy stuff. Just get, I got this thing, which I think was, yeah, $10 according to the price tag. And I literally just have that on my desk to replace a chair that I sold that my cat used to like to sit in. So now she'll sleep in that right next to me while I'm working, or I have another one in my bedroom on the floor. Sometimes she prefers to sleep in my bed with me, sometimes she prefers to sleep in her bed, or sometimes even under my bed. But those and blankets that smell like, that will eventually smell like your cat are nice things that you can use as part of like a home base, a lot of people will call it. Those are just like if you're bringing your cat to a new area and you know that your cat is relatively nervous, you can bring those items to often help and establish a safe area in that newer place for your cat. Another thing I don't have on here is a kennel. That's not something that I focused on right away, but it's something that you should definitely have a plan for pretty soon after you get a cat, just in case something goes wrong. You can take your cat to the vet really quickly. And I would recommend getting a vet checkup relatively soon after getting a cat. And some cats don't mind the vet. Like my cat loves going to the vet, meeting new people, and all the activity around. And she's just super intrigued by it all. But uh, she hates getting shots, so it can be a bit interesting. But for the most part, I got lucky. My cat's just totally fine with it. Let's see other stuff. There's a bunch of other things on not really on the list that are going to depend on the person. So I got my cat a collar. I don't usually have her wear it. Um, if I'm in a situation where I'm worried, more worried than normal that she'll like get outside or something, I'll put a collar on her just so if someone finds her, they know that she does actually have a human. Uh, I also harness. I got a harness and leash for her so that we can go outside and around if I want. And she seemed to already be harness trained, but that's something I can talk about in a future video maybe. But I think that's all I'm going to cover for purchases. I guess you could maybe argue that like boxes and stuff might be nice just for her to, for your cat to play in, but most people acquire enough boxes that you don't really buy that ahead of time. So then the actual like adoption versus breeding stuff, this is up to every individual, of course. I have literally no idea what breeding or getting a purposefully bred cat is like. I adopted because in my area there's a surplus of very highly adoptable cats, and we have a couple extremely nice shelters to adopt from. And there are different types of shelters, the main ones being kill or no kill. Personally, I didn't have a preference for where I got my cat, and the reason being is no-kill shelters are usually no-kill because they refuse cats they don't think they could adopt out, whereas a no-kill shelter may take a wider variety of cats or other animals that they don't know if they could adopt out, but they give them a chance. So personally, I didn't really care where I was adopting my cat from, just that I felt good about the organization as a whole and that I felt that they were really trying. So I also decided to volunteer because I had interacted with cats before and I knew I wanted a cat, but I hadn't really spent a bunch of time around cats and gotten used to the way they acted and some of the fine details of their body posture, for example. And cats are nothing like dogs in that sense. I mean, some cats can behave kind of like dogs. You see a cat that was raised by dogs, which can be interesting, but the volunteering process really helped me get a handle for what kind of cat I actually liked to spend a lot of time with and what cat I didn't, right? And that may be like walking into a shelter and spending 5 minutes with a cat. It can be super fun to have an extremely energetic and playful cat. But if you're there volunteering for like an hour or something, and that super fun, energetic cat just absolutely won't leave you alone, that can get extremely annoying if you were to actually live with said cat, right? Because that longer term time spent with the cat is going to be more similar to living with it than just the couple of minutes that you may get if you're not actually volunteering, right? And a lot of places, as long as you're not in the way, won't kick you out if you're petting a cat with the intent of maybe adopting. But that's something to keep in mind is you should get an idea for the types of energy that cats have, and that also allows them to, if you are going to adopt one, that may allow the cat that you're adopting to really get used to the energy that you bring to a situation too. And I'll talk more about why that's so important in a future video, where I dive a little bit deeper into finding a cat that you like and maybe dealing with some behaviors that you like or don't like right out of the gate. But I believe that that is all I'm going to talk about in this one. So I will see you guys in the next one. And the next one may have more Gabby in it, but we'll see.